Some killers evolve slowly. Others are shaped long before their first victim ever crosses their path. But then you have the ones who erupt all at once, fueled by trauma, addiction, and inner darkness no one saw coming. Between May and October of 1986, David Allen Rundle terrorized the Sacramento Valley, raping and strangling 2 women and a teenage girl before speeding towards what he thought would be freedom. Instead, he left behind a trail of bodies, confusion, and horror, and a story that still forces us to ask, was he born a monster or created? David Allen Rundle entered the world on January 4th, 1965, in Nevada County, California. His father served in the United States military as a chief warrant officer, bringing the family across multiple states. At first, Rundle seemed normal. He loved hunting, he loved fishing. He wasn't the type of kid that someone would point to and say, "Be careful." But at 14 years old, his life took a sharp turn. Drug addiction hit him early, and behind closed doors, something far worse. Rundle later claimed that his mother sexually abused him during his teenage years. If true, it was trauma he never recovered from. The moves continued, from California to Georgia, then to Idaho, then Nevada. He dropped out of high school. Eventually the family landed in Colfax, California. Then Rundle walked away entirely. In 1984 he married. When his wife became pregnant, he decided to abandon them both. The drugs and instability caused him to be fired from several jobs. He drifted searching until he found work as a floor installer. But the darkness inside him was already growing. In May of 1986, he managed to find his way back to California. He was staying at the Sacramento River, a place known for vagrants, drifters, and late-night wanderers. Rundle, who was high on marijuana and other things, was prowling the area. There he met 21-year-old Elizabeth Latour Lactawan. Using marijuana, he convinced her to go with him behind some bushes away from sight. What happened next was sudden, brutal, and final. He strangled her to death and dumped her body beneath the Pioneer Bridge. On May 10th, an anonymous caller alerted authorities. A witness gave a description of a male about 17 years old, 5'10", and looking suspicious. A $2,500 reward was posted, but Rundle stayed ahead of the investigation for now. The second victim was 18-year-old Caroline Marie Garcia. She was waiting for a bus to Roseville. She never reached it. Rundle abducted her, drove her deep along Rawlins Lake Road, and unleashed violence that shocked investigators. She was raped and beaten so severely that it took fingerprints to identify the body. Her clothing were shredded and bloody. They were discarded and found off Interstate 80, but her body remained missing. And then fate intervened. As officers searched Rawlins Lake Road for clues, Rundle, by sheer stupidity or panic, rammed his vehicle into the back of a police car, then sped away. It was too late, however. They had made the vehicle. They ran the plate. Now they had a lead. By then, Rundle was already hiding, planning his next move. On October 7th of 1986, in Loomis, California, Rundle abducted a 15-year-old, Lancianne Sorensen. He forced her to remove her clothing. He used her pants to bind her hands behind her back. And again she was raped and beaten so badly that she was unrecognizable. Her body was left near an Interstate 80 off-ramp, cold and alone. Just another victim in Rundle's downward spiral. Within months he had murdered 3 females, each one younger than the last. Rundle fled to Carson City, Nevada, but on November 20th, police tracked him down and arrested him. Almost immediately, the facade crumbled. He confessed to Garcia's murder, leading investigators to where he had hidden her body near Rollins Lake. He then confessed to the other two murders. During interviews, investigators said there was a chilling calmness to his demeanor. Rundle claimed he was a sick individual. In 1987, while awaiting trial, Rundle was attacked in his sleep by his cellmate, Melton Eugene Voigt, a man awaiting trial for armed robbery. Rundle suffered a skull fracture and was hospitalized for 10 days. Voigt was swiftly removed, but Rundle's own judgment was approaching. In 1989, after hearing the full brutality of the crimes, a jury sentenced him to death for the murders of Garcia and Sorensen. Some jurors openly cried. For the murder of Elizabeth, however, Rundle received life in prison. He still sits on death row in San Quentin State Prison. So how do we understand David Allen Rundle? How do we interpret him? On the one hand, he experienced documented trauma. He suffered from drug addiction. He entered adulthood with instability, abuse, and psychological damage. But the other hand carries weight that cannot be ignored. He abducted, raped, and strangled 3 victims, each one younger than the last. He showed organization, escalation, and purposeful violence. His victims were innocent and vulnerable, and offered no threat to him. Did the way he was brought up influence the monster he became? Very likely. But does influence equal excuse? That question remains uncomfortable, because acknowledging trauma does not erase responsibility. The legal system judges crimes as deliberate, calculated acts. The families judge his actions as unforgivable. And society is left staring into history's mysteries at the same cold conclusion. Some people break because something broke them first. Others break because they choose to. With David Allen Rundle, that answer remains lost somewhere in the dark spaces between psychology, violence, and humanity's oldest fears.